Okay, let's raise the bar on these walls because, yeah, they look okay, but what if we had some moss that three-dimensionally came out of some of the cracks here and then some vines coming up? That's kind of what I want to do, and I want to also pay attention to the colors I'm already using. This is like an olive green, so if I make moss, it should match something like this, and if I make vines, I should also go with that. I shouldn't be doing something like having something super saturated, bright yellowish, and these color of greens here. So I shouldn't be doing anything like that. But I'm looking at reference here on kind of how vines are growing and how I can kind of use some simple techniques to make something like this happen. So what I'm going to do here is go into Photoshop, and I already have a texture that I made for a ground that I think would work for me. I'll share that link in the description. What I'm going to do with this is actually duplicate that layer, and I'm going to go to my adjustments. I want to play around with my brightness and contrast. So I want to reduce my brightness, and I don't want a lot of contrast on it either. If I go legacy, see if I can go a little bit further with this. Yeah, let's say that this is so this will be our trial. So we go to File, Save As, and I've already shown how to make snow, and this is the same idea. So if I go into my same place that I was working before, there we go, and under my modular level and in my images, okay, I'm going to change this to PNG, and I'm going to call this moss color. Okay, now that I have that, let's go back into Maya, and let's get our colors in here. So let's create a material, or go blend, and load in that texture that I just made. So under images, moss color, open. Okay, now my blend moss matte, so it's material, and apparently I already had moss. I'm gonna go and turn off specular, and right away I can tell colors are off, so we'll mess around with this. But I'm gonna make some geometry first, and what I want to use is something simple. So I'm actually gonna make a sphere, and I want to make this low poly. So maybe this is gonna be like 5. Okay, so I can see I can get away with something like that. Let's go 6 here, and let's go like 3. Let's go 4. Alright, I can work with that. What I'm going to do is basically eliminate some of this geometry. So let's say that this is just gone. And let's grab these, hold down the V key, snap that, and let's squish that down a little bit. Okay. And I could probably go even lower poly than this, but I'll leave this alone. Or I could go higher depending on what I need to do. I'm going to do a mesh display soften this. So now it's just this little thing here. Squish these up some more. Move this inwards more. And move these down. Okay. So now they have something like this. I want to apply that moss to it. And I also want to do a automatic unwrap on it. So it's kind of looking like that. And let's go over to our model. I absolutely have to change the colors on this moss. It does not work. So let's say I have a clump of moss that I want to put growing on the side of my wall. Scale that down and pull that out some more. So this doesn't need to be a lot for depth. want it to kind of be an accent. Now, there's a couple other things I could have done too. Instead of using the color that I just used, and maybe you didn't have moss, you wanted to add that. Yeah, we could do something like this, and let me grab these while they're in the wall, just to kind of make that feel a little bit more organic. I'm going to actually apply that moss wall. So let's see if I can apply this. I'm going to go into their UV's UV editor. I'm going to shrink it down so I can sample just moss. For me, this is probably the safest way to make sure this is the same, because I can go right into a sample like right here and really ensure that my texture is going to be the same. So I'm going to just grab the top and the bottom, squish it down, maybe squish it down just a little bit more, and then maybe pull these up. Okay. So now that I have that, I have now a chunk of moss that's growing off the side of this, and it looks like how it's supposed to because it's actually from the model that I was working with. So I know I popped that out from a previous video. There we go. And the best part about this, how do we break up the obvious fact that this is a clear line? Well, duplicate and move over. So now we have that line that naturally happens from our small, or not small, but our it's linear, right? So everything is grid that we're doing here. Sorry, I'm trying to talk and it's 1 in the morning, so I can't talk good right now. Right now you can see I'm breaking up that line, so we're making it feel more organic. And if this is starting to feel like it's looking the same, don't ever feel like this is going to cost you something just to go and grab the shells and move over to another part of moss just to sample another section. Now we have this moss and that moss, and you can easily just build up some debris along the walls and edges of rocks and things like that that just make it for a more detailed landscape. So vines are another great way to do that, and they also help with the dreaded repeating texture mirror issue that's happening since I'm having this broken wall right here. So how do I do that? This is another easy trick where I'm gonna hide these. Let me just put these in here. I'm gonna hide that one. I'm gonna make a new layer, and I'm gonna use my pen tool, and I'm gonna do the best I can to draw out a little vine leaf. And this leaf vine, it's not really anything that has to be super fancy, just kind of has to look nice. So I can either sit here and try to draw out a leaf vine, or a leaf for a vine. Wow, I need to go night-night. There we go. So if I wanted to do that, and I can turn that into a shape and fill it, and I can do a ton of these. I could do that, and I'll try to do that if this other way doesn't work out. But there is another thing that we could do, and it is a brush inside of Photoshop now, and it's the foliage brush, and that's under Kyle's Ultimate or Kyle's Concept brushes. It does this. Doesn't that look beautiful? So let's try that one more time. I'm going to increase my size and just press that button, and it made this. Let's get that to being another color. So I'm going to go into my color overlay. Now that it's green, I'll hit OK. And I'm going to look at my reference again. And it's not going to be up on your screen because it's on my other monitor. I'm going to move it over there in a second. But you can see there's some light yellows. The younger ones are lighter yellow, and then we have these darker, almost like green and purple that's going on here. So yellows, green, purples, and browns. So if I want to do something like this, it's actually not the craziest thing to do, to use our Wacom tablet and paint out some of these pieces. So if I were to actually grab this whole thing and then make a mask on that, I can actually take that mask, put it on another layer, and what I'm going to do here is not use that same brush. I'm going to go into maybe like a soft round, and I'm going to change some of the colors on this. So I'm going to go into like a yellow, and I want to do this as like a let's say screen, and I'm going to drop my opacity. So I'm going to go maybe like that. And so these smaller ones might have some brighter yellow to them. And so I can just work these up. Zoom out while you're doing that to make sure that you're actually getting something going. Increase my opacity. Wow, I think my computer's starting to slow down a little bit. Okay, there we go. So that's starting to get somewhere. And now we can go in and let's go underneath this layer, because you can see it's transparent. We go underneath that layer, and I'm going to use a dark green, and where I'm going to paint is underneath, because you'll notice all of a sudden I've got those not veins, but the whatever you want to call those, the whatever a sleepy person would not say, yeah, those things on a leaf. So I'm going to do this for a little bit more, and let me pause this for a second, and then I'll come back. Okay, so I'm just adding some more shadow to this. So I went another layer up, and I started painting in some more, and you can see I'm getting some definition on these pieces. So it doesn't have to be super detailed, because this is going to be very small, so I don't think that a lot of these pixels will even transfer when we scale them down. But at this level, that's looking pretty good. We can make this more dimensional if we were to use some effects here. So let's use a drop shadow, and let's not do it on that one. Let's do it on the one that we should be doing it on, which is that one. So let's go into drop shadow, and we don't need a lot. We just need just a little bit to make it feel like there's some shadow there. And if these are going to be growing down, let's make sure that the angle is going from top down as well. We'll hit OK. And I also, let's see if we can do this. I'm going to go ahead and grab this and Control T, rotate. Now I know I got some stuff underneath there. I'm just setting this up so that way I can think about where a vine might be. Because again, if I look at my reference for stuff here, the vine is underneath these pieces and kind of going across in certain directions following where these leaves are. So I kind of want to do that too. So to be able to do something like that, and I'm kind of skipping ahead here, I do want to add a couple more, a bit more detail to this leaf. The reference here, need a little bit more shading on here. So what I'm going to do next is do a drop shadow or inner shadow. So not inner glow, inner shadow. And I'm going to increase my distance. Nope, I'm going to increase my choke, not a lot. And then the size. And I know it looks really weird right now. I'm going to reduce this by going into the opacity, just playing around with that so I can get multiply, let's color burn, Okay. We can go into linear burn. So we're going to just play with these settings here. I actually like darker color. I'm going to go with green on that. You'll notice it kind of just gives me a little bit more definition on these pieces here. So I can continue working this up. The main thing I want to do right now is make sure that I have some lines that are clear on my model, so I can just really make sure. Why is my opacity is really low? There we go. So I may not need to go that deep with that, but there we go. All right. And yeah, the more you work on this, the better it hopefully starts to look. That's the whole goal, right? It shouldn't be looking worse. It should be getting more detailed. So I'm going to leave this alone for now. We're going to bring this now into the next phase where we're going to take all the work that we have for this. We're going to group them. So let's group. I'm just going to hold down Control G to group it. We'll call these leaves. And now that I have this, what do I need to do? I'm going to duplicate this group and merge it. So always when you feel like you have something good, keep that same group that you can go back to and mess around with it, but always feel like if it's going to get too heavy for Photoshop to handle it, merge it. So I've got this merged. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to give it a rotate. That looks way better. So if I'm right here and then I duplicate this layer, bring it over maybe here, and you can erase certain pieces. That way it doesn't look like it's 100% that same one. You don't want patterns to 100% be there. But the next step that we're going to do after this is really what's going to define this. So let's just duplicate these a couple more times. And while I'm duplicating this, I'm also rotating and flipping them so it doesn't feel, again, like this is the same piece. So if I'm going to go out to here, I can hit Control T, hold down Shift, and drag the opposite direction. That way I have leaves that are going a little bit different than in the previous ones. And I'll hit Enter, and then I'll erase out some of these other ones. Alright, I'm going to pause the video and I'll come back at another section here. Okay, so what do I need to do? I need to think about where these are scaling from, because they're all in a very similar size, and that's not really how leaves work. So what I'm going to do is hit Control T and scale some of these. I'm going to grab that and this one, Control T, scale that one down a little bit, and then this one, Control T, scale that. And then that one, I'm going to leave that one alone. Okay, so I have something like this. I'm just going to add a couple more of the top, which that last one's right here. So let me just move this up, and let's say that that's ready to go. I'm going to take all of these, hit Control T. Actually, let's hit Control G. And we're going to hit Control T now and scale this so it's linear. Alright, so I got something like this now. I could break this up by giving it a bit of a curve, because vines do that. So if I look again at my reference, they kind of do a swooping motion, right? Even if they're going something like this, which I'm going to do another one that does that, that's kind of how they operate. So if I were to mess around with these as well, here's my bottom one. Move this closer to the middle. I'm going to turn on auto select and hope that it grabs the right ones. There we go. And I'm just kind of moving these around. All right, so if it feels like it's too many of them, again, you can delete out like half of these just to have like less of it. So I'm going to say that this is okay. However, I would have reduced this down even further, so I don't have these many greens going everywhere. I would make that sparse. As a matter of fact, let me do that. Let me pause the video. Okay, so clean this up. I would have changed some of this around so it's not 100% like this. I would spend a lot more time than this quick little video, but the core concepts are all here. The next step that I would do here is paint in my vine. And so if I were to go up and around, something like that, that's terrible. Don't do that. Use a hard round and don't go super saturated. So knock that back. You can always fix that later. I'm going to go maybe around here. I'm going to look at reference of how vine, their little tiny sticks are going. They kind of fork and grab on different pieces. So I'm going to try and emulate that or simulate that here. I'm going to go up and fork. Also make sure that I don't have transfer for my pen pressure. Let's see, in my shape dynamics, pen pressure, that's what I want. Okay. So now I should be able to get a little bit of better control on this. There we go. Again, I'm just whipping this up as I go. Okay, so you'll notice I have room for another one, and I could do that, but I'm not. I'm going to leave all that alone. I'm going to take all this, I'm going to make sure that this is inside that same layer, and I want to have this do a drop shadow. So now that drop shadow straight down, I think that's good. Distance, we'll go around there, hit OK. I'm going to move this whole group up a little bit, and we'll use this as our test. First thing I know is it's too saturated, so I'm going to drop my saturation on this just by going into my hue saturation. Drag that, or just press that to make sure it's in, and let's make it so it's connected just to that group. So I'm going to make sure it's above, and hold down Control or Alt, click here, and this will only control this group. Let's drop the saturation. Okay. Now, File, Save As, PNG, and we'll call this Vine Color. Okay, now let's bring it in here. So we're going to go and create another material that's off screen for me, and drop the color, or drop the specular again. I'm going to link in my Vine Color. Hit open. Alright, what do I need? Plane. Bring the plane over. Let's make that a 2. Let's rotate it. Alright, now I'm going to put in my vine material on that. So we just middle mouse button, drag that on here. And you'll notice it's only taking up a little bit of space. How do I get this to not use up that much space? Whip out your knife, cut, and we'll even cut over here. I have some wasted space over there too, so I'll get rid of that. Grab these, tell them goodbye, and let's snap that to here. I'm going to rotate that so it's aligned like this, 90. We're going to freeze this now, and we're going to bring it over. Before I bring it over, I can do a couple other really quick things too. If I wanted to make this a little bit more higher res, I'm going to start from the bottom, and what I could do, let's see if I can do. Oh, yeah, I'm just gonna start from here down here. This might look weird, but you'll see in a second what I'm doing. So I'm cutting away. I forgot to end that action, so it totally didn't click. Here to here, and here to here, and I'm going to need to go something like that. I'll fix that in a second. And then from here to there, there to there, and I'm going to get rid of some of these polygons because I don't need them. And I know I have an n-gon here, so I'm going to clean that up. And what I want to do is try and make it so the quads stay going upward so I can divide this one more time. So how I'm going to do that is, if I know that this is the base, then I should have a quad going across here. So I want like maybe one right there and right there. And if I, whoops, just hit delete on that. And hit the Y key again to get my knife. Do this. Okay. And now I'm going to hit delete on that. And delete on that. And you kind of get the picture. I'm going up this to divide it one more time. So here to here. And now I have, we'll go one more time. This. Multi-cut, I can go right here now. Double click. And then just pull. So what I ended up doing is giving some dimensionality to this piece. Now, if you feel that that's too many polygons, too little polygons, whatever you need to do, that's fine. I can also make sure maybe the base is wider than the other part. Okay, cool. Let's put that over where it needs to go now. We're also going to change the pivot point because it's way too far away. Okay, let's go and bring it home. Now, if you did it right, it'll look like it's kind of touching the wall. And we can play around with this to build out more. So that's the cool part about working with stuff like this. We can really do all sorts of things. And if you feel that it's starting to make a pattern because you have that bend going in one direction, that's fine. You could change that bend. Maybe you got that going here. You got it growing from the base like this. And then you have another one it's connecting to there. And this one goes up even further. So now you have some vines and you have some moss. So that is there. There we we go. I can just get rid of that top one. And now we have some hanging vines on a wall with some moss. That really, it's not going to take a long time to do this, but it's really going to give you some really nice additional geometry to a really low poly model. Again, if I select just this, I'm at 441 triangles, so that's not bad. So that's again how we can get some stuff. I would do some more color balancing, making sure everything fits. I'd incorporate some purples into this as well, because there's purples in that wall. We want to use those shadows. So yeah, that's it.